Everyone thought they knew why Wanzila kept saying no. Too picky, too selective, too difficult. They had a lot of words for it, but none of them were right, because what looked like rejection from the outside was something else entirely from the inside. Wanzila wasn't pushing people away. She was protecting something, and the day Chan walked into her life, she finally understood what she had been protecting it for. Wanzila had not always been this certain. There was a time, not so long ago, when she had lived the way most people live, open to whatever came, going on dates, exploring connections, allowing herself to be swept along by the current of possibility. She wasn't reckless, but she was undirected. And undirected, she would later understand, is how you end up in places you were never meant to stay. There was one situation, not a relationship exactly, not something she would even fully name, but something that left her unsettled. Not broken, not devastated, just aware. Aware that she had stepped into something that didn't align with who she truly wanted to be. And that awareness changed everything. It didn't happen in a dramatic moment. No loud turning point. No sudden transformation. Just a quiet drive home one evening. The city moving around her, her hands on the wheel, her thoughts, for once, completely honest. And somewhere in that stillness she spoke, not out loud, not with prepared words, just honestly. God, I want to do this differently. She tightened her hands slightly on the wheel. I don't want to keep choosing things I already know aren't right for me. A pause. I want what you have for me. The words settled around her. Not heavy, not overwhelming, just clear. And from that moment, she made a decision. Not out of fear, not because she had been hurt beyond repair, but because she had understood something deeply. She would not continue without direction. She would not say yes just because someone else thought she should. She would wait, not passively, but intentionally. The first year felt easy. She was focused on work, building her life in Singapore, new routines, new friendships, new rhythms. People asked questions. She answered lightly. I'm just focusing on myself right now. Simple, acceptable, enough. The second year was different. By then, the questions had changed. Are you seeing anyone? Why not? You're a good woman. You shouldn't be alone. You're not getting any younger. She would smile, sometimes laugh it off, sometimes change the subject, but internally something was solidifying. Because in that time she had started learning, not from people around her, but from something deeper. She began to understand what love should actually look like, not just emotionally, but spiritually. She began to see the difference between something that feels good now and something that is right long-term. And once you see that difference, you cannot unsee it. She began to understand what she was actually asking for. When she prayed, she wasn't just praying for a husband. She was praying for alignment. She was asking God to prepare her and to prepare the man meant for her, to shape them both quietly in the years before they met. And if she had already prayed all of that, why would she turn around and settle for the first available option? Why would she pray with one hand and grab with the other? She wouldn't. She couldn't. And so she waited, not with frustration, not with anxiety, but with a quiet, unshakable confidence that she couldn't fully explain to anyone who hadn't felt it themselves. The proposals came, not always formal ones, but clear intentions. Men who were kind, respectful, well-meaning. Men who, on paper, made sense. And every time Wanzila would pause, consider, pray, and say no. Not harshly, not dismissively, just clearly. I don't think this is right for me. It confused people. Why would you say no to someone like him? He's a good man. You won't find perfect, she never argued. because she wasn't looking for perfect. She was looking for aligned. And that, most people didn't understand. One evening, she sat across from her father. He had watched her say no for years. He wasn't unkind about it. He was just trying to understand. "Wanzila," he said gently, "you've said no to a lot of good people." She nodded. "I know." He watched her. "Why?" She leaned back slightly. Not because she didn't know the answer, but because she wanted to say it right. "Imagine this," she began. "I've been praying for something specific, not in detail, but in direction. I've been asking God to prepare me, and to prepare the person meant for me." Her father listened, and then one day, she continued. "I meet someone, and I choose them, even when I feel it's not what I prayed for." She looked at him. "Wouldn't that mean I didn't really trust what I was asking for in the first place?" Silence settled between them. "I don't think waiting is wasting time," she added softly. "I think it's trusting that what's coming is worth not rushing." Her father nodded slowly, not fully convinced, but no longer questioning. Back in Singapore, life continued. Work, church, the rhythms of a life that was full, even without the thing people kept telling her she was missing. And that was the part they never quite understood. Wanzila was not miserable. She was not sitting in her apartment, staring at the ceiling, aching for someone to complete her. She was living, fully. She had friendships that mattered, work she was proud of, a faith that had become the foundation of everything she did. She cooked, she laughed, she traveled when she could. She was the person friends called when they needed to talk. She was the person who stayed late and showed up early, and meant it every time she said she would pray for you. She was not waiting on the edge of her life. She was living in the middle of it, trusting that when the right person came, she would be ready, because she had used the time well, because she had not let the waiting make her bitter, because she believed with a certainty that sat deeper than logic, that God gives good things. If He clothes the fields, if He feeds the birds of the air, how much more would He do for His children? She had prayed. She had trusted. She had prepared. And she had left the timing to Him. It was a Sunday morning. Wanzila arrived at church the way she always did, on time, settled, ready. She greeted the people she knew, found her usual spot, bowed her head for a moment of quiet before the service began. Nothing about it felt unusual. Nothing about it felt like the morning everything would change. But that is the nature of God's timing. It rarely announces itself, it simply arrives. The service was good that the worship was full. And afterward, as people moved and conversation started, Wanzila made her way toward a small group of friends near the side of the room. That was when she noticed him, not because he was performing, not because he was trying to be seen. In fact, it was almost the opposite. He was standing slightly apart from the room, calm, unhurried, not scrolling his phone, not scanning for someone to impress, just present. There was something about it that made her pause. She didn't know his name. She had seen him once or twice before, she thought, but she had never spoken to him. A mutual friend caught her eye in that moment and waved her over. "Wanzila, come, let me introduce you." She walked over, and the man turned. "This is Chan," her friend said simply. Chan nodded. No performance, no practiced charm, just a quiet, genuine acknowledgement. "Wanzila," she said, and something she did not rush to define, shifted. They talked that morning for longer than either of them had planned, not because the conversation was dazzling, but because it was easy, genuinely, unexpectedly easy. Chan spoke thoughtfully. He didn't fill every silence. He didn't oversell himself. He asked questions that were actually curious, not strategic. And he listened the way people listen, when they are genuinely interested in what you are saying. Wanzila had been in enough conversations to know the difference, and she noticed at one point he asked her how long she had been at this church. She told him. He asked what she did for work. She told him that too. Then he asked something she hadn't expected. What do you love about it? Not what do you do? Not how long have you been doing it? What do you love about it? She found herself answering at length, honestly, with the kind of detail you only give when you trust that the person asking actually wants to know. And when she finished, he smiled. Not the smile of someone waiting for their turn to speak, just pleased, like someone who had just heard something genuinely good. She went home that afternoon and sat with a cup of tea and thought about the conversation. Not obsessively, not with urgency, just thought about it. The ease of it, the quality of his attention, the fact that she had not for one moment felt the need to evaluate whether she was right for him. She had just been herself, and that, more than anything, was what she noticed. Chan had not planned to meet anyone that Sunday. He was not on a mission. He was not strategizing. He had simply shown up, the way he always did, with no agenda beyond being present. He was a quiet man, not shy, quiet. The kind of person who thought before he spoke and meant what he said, and didn't say more than he meant. He had his own story, his own years of learning what mattered, his own understanding that love, real love, was not something you manufactured through effort and timing. It was something you recognized. When he met Wanzila, he recognized something. He didn't name it immediately. He didn't rush toward it. He simply paid attention. He asked their mutual friend about her afterward, quietly, without drama, just a few honest questions. And what he heard confirmed what he had felt in that first conversation. She was serious about her faith. She was not looking for just anyone. She knew what she was waiting for, and she had been willing to wait for it. That told him everything he needed to know about the kind of person she was. He prayed about it. Simply and honestly. God, if this is something you are doing, let it be clear. And then he waited. Not passively, but without force, trusting that if the timing was right, the next conversation would come. It did. They began talking more, first after church, then over coffee. Then in longer conversations that stretched well past what either of them had planned. Jan was consistent. So that was the thing Wanzila noticed most. He was the same on a Tuesday as he was on a Sunday, the same in a quiet moment as in a full room. There was no performance, no version of himself he brought out for her benefit and put away when she wasn't looking. He was just himself, steady, thoughtful, present. And she, who had spent years knowing exactly what she was looking for, found herself not evaluating at all, just enjoying, just being in the conversation, just present, the way she always was. But now, with someone who matched it, they talked about faith, not around it, not past it, but directly, with honesty and depth and the particular ease of two people who share the same foundation. He told her about moments when God had been clear. She told him about the years of intentional waiting. He didn't find it strange. He didn't think it was too much. He simply nodded. I understand that, he said. I think I've been doing something similar. She looked at him. Waiting? Being careful, he said, about what I give my heart to. Wanzila was quiet for a moment. Then, me too. And in that exchange, simple, unhurried, unperformed, something was confirmed. It wasn't a single moment, it was an accumulation. The way he remembered things she had said weeks earlier and asked about them without being prompted. The way he prayed, naturally, without making it a show, before meals, in quiet moments, in the middle of conversations, when something needed to be placed in God's hands. The way he looked at her, not with possession, not with performance, just with a certainty that didn't need to announce itself. She had spent years being looked at by men who wanted her to choose them. Chan never seemed to want that. He simply showed up, consistently, honestly, and let her see exactly who he was. There was one evening, a quiet dinner, nothing planned, when it settled over her, not loudly, not overwhelmingly, just cleanly, the way truth tends to arrive, when you have been patient enough to wait for it. She looked across the table at him, at this man who had never once pressured her, never once made her feel like she was on a deadline, never once performed for her approval, and she thought, this is what I prayed for. Not someone perfect, not someone flawless, but someone aligned. Someone whose faith ran in the same direction as hers. Someone who had also been careful. Someone who had also chosen to wait for what was right. She thought about the quiet drive home years ago, the prayer she had prayed with her hands on a steering wheel. I want what you have for me. And sitting across from Chan, she understood. This was the answer. Arriving, the way God's answers so often do. Not with fanfare, but with quiet, undeniable rightness. Chan asked her to marry him on a quiet evening, in a place that meant something to her. No crowd, no performance, just the two of them. And a question he had prayed over long before he asked it. Wanzila, he said, I have watched you. I have listened to you. I have prayed about this, honestly and for a long time. And I believe with everything in me that God has been preparing us for each other. He paused. Will you marry me? Wanzila looked at him, at this man who had never rushed her, who had never once made her feel like her waiting was a problem to be solved, who had simply arrived and stayed, and let everything unfold in its own time. She thought about every no she had said, every confused look, every gentle argument from someone who meant well, but couldn't see what she was seeing. She thought about her father's question, why? And she thought about the answer she had given, because I trust that what's coming is worth not rushing. She looked at Chan and she knew, completely, peacefully, without a single doubt, that every year of waiting had been leading here. Yes, she said. Yes, Chan. 1,000 times yes. Everyone thought they knew why Wanzila kept saying no, but she was never saying no to people. She was saying yes to God. Yes, I trust you. Yes, I believe you prepare things. Yes, I believe what you have for me is worth waiting for. And she was right. Because the moment Chan walked into her life, she didn't have to force anything. She didn't have to convince herself. She didn't have to wonder if this was it. She simply recognized it, the way you recognize something you have been praying toward for a very long time. If God clothes the fields, if he feeds the birds of the air, how much more does he give to his children? Wanzila had asked for something specific, not a person, but a direction. And God, faithful as he always is, answered, in his time, in his way, exactly right. She wasn't too picky. She wasn't too difficult. She wasn't asking for too much. She was simply faithful. Faithful to a prayer she had prayed years before anyone else could see the answer coming. Faithful to the belief that God prepares things, that he doesn't forget, that what he has is worth not rushing. And she was right. She wasn't too picky. She wasn't too difficult. She wasn't asking for too much. She was simply faithful. Faithful to a prayer she had prayed years before anyone else could see the answer coming. Faithful to the belief that God prepares things, that he doesn't forget, that what he has is worth not rushing. And she was right. That is what Written by Grace, Faith, and Forever Stories is for. Stories that remind you it is not too much to wait for what is right. It is not foolish to trust God with this part of your life, and the waiting, if you let it, will prepare you for exactly what is coming. Subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you are in your waiting season right now, hold on. What you are protecting is worth it.